Let me start today with something honest, if I can be transparent, because this one might hit close to home for you. I know it does for me, because if I'm being real, if I'm being honest, which I am, okay, then the number of knee jerk, poorly timed, badly delivered responses I have had over the last 40 years. I'm 43. I guess that would assume that I've never had a bad response from the time I was born till I was 3. So that's not true either. So let's just say all of the bad responses I've had since being 1 years old, okay, that's 42 years. And yes, by the way, it's more than I would ever want to admit. But here's what I've learned. Even from our own bad responses, we can still respond. And yes, we should always aim to respond well the first time. 100%. We should desire emotional maturity. We should desire wisdom and show restraint in our responses the first time. But we won't always get it right. Let's be honest. And when we miss it, it's important we understand that it's not final. And that's where today's episode really begins, right? This is the idea. It's you're not defined by your first response. And I understand that that first response does seem to incur quite a bit of judgment. We tend to then, you know, determine one person's character. We judge our own selves. We find a lot of shame and guilt maybe in that, and that happens too. But it's yours. But the reality, or what I believe, is you're strengthened more by how you recover from it, how you choose to respond after the failed response. And we got to understand that recovery in our failed responses can be built on three simple things that we believe here in the KFM culture is that we can recover by having one principle, one practice, and one movement we can implement in almost any subject matter so we can recover well. And it's not to help you avoid, it's not to help me avoid failure altogether, but it is to help us recover well when we don't respond the way we know we should. You guys, welcome to the Kingdom Family Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Velasquez, and I appreciate you tuning in today. If you are here for the first time, hey, just know here at the Kingdom Family Movement Podcast, we are about restoring God's original intent and design for the marriage, family, and home. And we are doing that one principle, one practice, and one movement at a time. And hey, do me a favor. If you know that this would help someone today, and in the true heartbeat for me personally within this podcast, but just in the context of my life is always, it's worth it if it can impact one person. And I don't want to say that in a way that gives someone permission to have a poverty mindset, because I want to reach as many people, God willing, as I can. But I certainly don't want to not put in the work, the time, and the effort because I think one's not worth it. Man, I just don't, one is always worth it. So if that's you and that resonates, hey, keep going. Whatever it is you're doing, keep going. It's worth it. And I appreciate it. So anyway, you guys, welcome. I'm happy you're here. And again, if this episode resonates with someone, or you're finding that someone's having a hard time with their responses and they're not going well and it's beating them up, here's my shameless plug. Send this one to them. It's going to be encouraging and a reminder. But let me set this up a little bit, because I think sometimes I'll just say this. In a realistic kind of stereotypical way, I'm going to give you a scenario that I think we can all relate to when it comes to poor responses, how quickly we get there, and why it's important to understand it's not the failed response that matters as much as it is the response that follows. And so, right, I'll use myself and my wife for an example. Right? As a husband, right? And she's my wife, we walk in maybe after a long day at work or whatever it may be. Okay. I'm tired. She's tired. The house is loud. I have 4 kids. Okay. Maybe one of them's crying. The youngest is 8. I feel like we've kind of passed that phase and stage unless something crazy happens. But normally in my case, they're all trying to get to us because they got to tell us something that happened. They got to share, and they could be good things, but they're just excited, or they're trying to justify all their actions that we're about to find out happened. right? There's dishes that are everywhere. And then all of a sudden it's just festering. And one comment is said, is misunderstood. And maybe one response is a sharp one. The tone is sharp. Maybe one response is a voice that's too loud and it yells and it's angry. Maybe someone withdraws. That's the response. And then 10 minutes later, the whole place is silent. Nobody means for it to escalate. Nobody comes in generally to a situation and says, I'm going to cause this to escalate and I'm going to respond poorly, purposefully. And maybe we do. But nobody plans for the tension, but now we feel it, right? The whole home is heavy. And here's the real battle. Here's where it starts. It's not the failed responses. It's what happens next. And we got to remember, do we decide to justify how we responded? Do we defend it? Do we ignore it? Right? Do we just blame our own stress and circumstance, the hard day's work, whatever it may be? Or do we choose to recover? Do we choose to respond well from a failed response? Do we choose to hit the reset button? Because healthy marriages, healthy families, healthy homes, they are not built on perfect reactions. Let's be honest. But I do believe they're built on faithful recovery, which is the more important reset to a failed response. And we do that one principle, one practice, and one movement at a time. So how do we understand the principle maybe of a poor response? I would put it this way. From a principle standpoint, right? Your failed responses, my failed responses, they matter and they carry weight. And there's a lot that could be said about them. But I don't believe that they matter as much as how we choose to respond after it. That matters much more. Okay, so your failed response matters, but your recovery or your well response after it matters even more. Scripture in Proverbs 15:1, I think, reminds us that a soft answer turns away wrath. Now, that is a amazing reminder in truth. It's also convicting at the same time when I think about how many times have I not responded softly? A lot. But we got to remember that when we respond in a soft tone, it doesn't mean if you didn't respond in a soft tone the first time, it's over. I mean, it means and reminded that now that we've responded not in a soft tone, you have an opportunity to respond in a soft tone. It's not about a perfect answer. It's about a soft tone, self-control, calm, being in the right spirit, kindness, right? Because as I've already said, we will never perfectly get it right every time. You won't. I won't. No marriage, no home, no family will. But humility, right? If we bring humility into it, it begins to then restore or reset the failed response that pride usually will always prolong. You ever felt like something's gone for a long time? Ask yourself, is it because my pride is in the way? And again, a failed response does not define your marriage, your parenting, your home. Okay. But an unwillingness for us to want to repair it, to reset it, to recover it, that absolutely will, because that begins to infringe upon the character of who it is God's called you to be as a husband, as a wife, as a parent, right? And as much as we could relate responses to our spouses, we can relate them to our kids, our coworkers, a brother and sister in Christ, a friend. It doesn't, all of it. And so again, the failed response doesn't define your marriage and all those things, but our unwillingness to want to be humble, to then respond or reset or recover, that does absolutely begin to define the character of who you are. So remember, the simple principle is that your failed responses matter, but how we respond from the failed response matters even more. So, how do we practice it? How do we, from that principle, begin to practice responding well? Well, I think one of the ways would be one, identify the next time you respond poorly. And newsflash, by the way, this just in, you will, I will, we will respond poorly eventually because we're still human. We are imperfect beings, but God sees us as perfect. So thank God for that. And maybe that is the practice you need to start first. Maybe the practice for you is just learning how to catch yourself and identify and recognize the poor response. So do that first and then do the second thing, which would be practice then acknowledging it out loud by telling your spouse, for example, hey, or your kids, I didn't respond well just now. I am sorry. Can we reset? When you say that, that is a response. Do it in a soft tone, genuinely, kindness, all those things. You're not going to bring an excuse. You're not bringing an explanation as to why you responded poorly. You're not going to defend yourself. And we're not going to try to justify the tone we use because of the circumstance. It's practicing just ownership. Because when we take ownership and we begin to reset and repair, it will build trust way faster than trying to always have the perfect response. It just won't. See, in the kingdom family movement culture, right? I would say this is that at the root of it, I understand, and I believe this to be more true is that I want homes that aren't conflict free. I don't want marriages and families that are conflict free, but I want marriages, families, and homes that are repair rich, meaning there's a willingness to identify what didn't go well and then work towards repairing it, resetting it, and doing it humbly as unto God, right? As servitude towards our spouses and our kids. And so, how do we then take the principle, right, in the practice of identifying our failed responses, learning how to apologize and speak it out, which is a response in and of itself. And we begin to move on it in a daily sense, right? So, the one action we can do every single day. When you do it varies. That's up to you. You find your own rhythm with this. But maybe before the end of the day, for an example, practice taking movement and action on initiating one repair conversation. What do I mean by that? I mean, you've identified somewhere where you responded poorly, but you've yet to express it. Take time to take movement and action on setting a time to talk about it and repair it. Right? It might be something small. It might be something big. It might be something that's been lingering for months even, right? Maybe something comes to memory from 2, 3, 4 weeks ago and you're like, oh my gosh, that was horrible. And I never even brought it up. And it's not, don't feel shame or condemnation. See the opportunity to then respond well from a once failed response. But take the step, whatever it may be. You know, I was thinking about this because I've had times where with my wife, I've spoken a sharp tone and we were in the midst of getting ready. I was going to leave. She's at the house or vice versa. And then it's like, oh my gosh, there was no time for a recovery response. And so one thing you can do is text, right? It's much better, I think, in person to say it, right? But text it. Just text the recovery response and say, hey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I was wrong. I take full ownership. Can we reset? Right? And especially if you get the chance, look them in the eye. And remember, right, the failed response isn't because you're weak. It's not because you're a failure. It's not because you're way behind the curve. No, it's because it feels weighty because your home matters. Your home is your first ministry. Your marriage is a ministry. And ministry, listen, it always begins with humility. So it's okay that we humble ourselves and we take ownership because that is the more important response. It's not the failed response because we're going to have failed response all the time. Let me land the plane. Let me just encourage you really quick as I get ready to sign off is remember that in the context of responses, right? A failed response is not final. Okay. A bad response is not your identity. Man, that could be a hard one for someone. Maybe you have a hard time. Maybe we're supposed to be slow to anger, but you find yourself being quick to anger, right? Listen, work on it. But just remember that's not your identity. Okay. One moment doesn't define your entire marriage. One slip up doesn't doom your entire family or home. Grace is something that we don't just preach, right? In a home. Grace is something we're to practice. And remember, grace is a gift that God gives us. It's not like I just reach in a bucket of grace and then hand it to someone. It's practice because it's something I've been given. Because God has given me grace, I'm going to practice giving others grace. And every time we choose humility over pride and we choose repair over retreat, meaning like, have you ever felt like you just want to walk away from a situation? It got too intense, too much pressure. There was too much sharp tone spoken at you, right? Or from your own self. And you just thought, I can't recover from this. This is so bad. I'm going to slip away into silence and walk. Listen, take the moment if you need to, for sure. But when we choose repair over retreat, right? And the soft answer over the sharp reaction, then we are simply doing what this is all about. What KFM stands for, Kingdom Family Movement, is restoring God's design inside your own four walls. So today, don't just listen to this, live it. One principle, one practice, and one movement at a time. Because a failed response is not final. And how we respond to that failed response brings about recovery, repair, and it's a healthy reset. And it matters so much more than the failed responses we will have from here on out. Because it's not about being perfect. It is about being willing and obedient to then respond from the mistake that brings about a healthy marriage, family, and home. You guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Hey, as always, if you don't already, hey, subscribe by clicking the link below and join us inside a more in-depth weekly email we send out every Monday to your inbox. Is the KFM 111 weekly reset, where we elaborate on the one practice, or the one principle, the one practice, and the one movement that you can implement that is helping reignite marriages. It's helping realign families and restore the home. I appreciate you. Sam Velasquez with the Kingdom Family Movement podcast, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace.